Due to the decisions that I've made over the last 2 years, I have ended up in a precarious situation. You see, what I have chosen to do is two things simultaneously that on their own are considered pretty intense. Finishing my PhD and starting a company. And I'll be the first to admit that many people think this is a really, really bad idea. I mean, who in their right mind starts a startup during the final stages of their often very grueling PhD? Both are notorious for being stressful, demanding, and all-consuming. And despite the precarious nature of my situation, I have come to learn that I wouldn't have it any other way. Because you see, in research, what happens sometimes is that when we're working on a solution to a problem that society is facing, we sometimes realize that kind of the technology and the infrastructure of today is not actually ready to support the idea or allow us to implement our idea. And by doing the PhD and starting a company at the same time, I actually have an incredible opportunity to identify gaps that I see and then actually implement something to fill that gap. Right? So let me give you an example. At the beginning of my PhD, a problem that I became very passionate about was how can we use the internet to improve the safety and efficiency of vehicles? And this problem became very central to my research. And as I was thinking about different ideas and solutions of how to solve this, at some point in my PhD, I realized that there was a gap in how we think about building systems for the internet. That there's a gap with how we build infrastructure for a lot of digital services. And the internet can be a pretty abstract idea for a lot of people, myself included. So I'm going to ground it in something that we're all much more familiar with, the transportation network. So the internet and the transportation network are a lot more similar than people might think. So both are networks that support different users, different services. There's multiple stakeholders who are responsible for building them out with all a shared goal of getting things to flow through the network. The main difference being that one transports people and goods, and one transports data. And in this analogy, kind of this gap that I came across in my PhD starts to become a bit easier to understand. Because you see, the way we have built infrastructure for the internet is most similar to the way we have thought about how to build public transportation, and not the entire transportation network. Specifically, just like how public transportation is designed to be accessible and scale super well to large numbers of people using it, the internet is also designed to be accessible and scale well to the vast amounts of data that we're moving around the world. And I would attribute the success that we currently have with the internet in our digital age to this kind of public transportation mindset that we've had for the internet. And this mindset, although has brought us success, I will argue that it is starting to become a challenge we face in the future as well. Because you see, when we think about the transportation network, we realize that public transportation, despite all of the benefits it has, doesn't serve all of our mobility needs. Right? So if I'm at my home or in the office, and I have a meeting across town that I need to get to in a short amount of time, I usually don't opt for the bus or the train. I take a taxi. Or in more dire situations, if I have a medical emergency and I need to go to the hospital, I don't take the train. I call a taxi. I don't call a taxi. I call an ambulance. And there you start to see kind of the issue with how we think about digital infrastructure usually. So while the internet as it is now is very supportive of me building a messaging app that millions of people can use it, when I send a message from my app to my friend, the time between my send and the receive is a couple of seconds or half a second. And when we start integrating vehicles into the internet, this delay becomes intolerable. So this is the way to think about it, right? So think about that you are in your car, for those of us who drive, and you're driving on the highway, and you encounter a scenario that many of us have encountered several times in our life. You realize that the person in front of you is slowing down a lot faster than you think. And in that moment, you panic and you slam on the brakes. Think about what would happen if, when you hit the brakes, instead of the brakes being applied immediately, they started getting applied 5 to 10 meters later of motion, right? The results would be disastrous. And in this way, these delays that were typically very tolerable on the internet become very unsafe when it comes to controlling vehicles on the internet. So when I started to realize this in my PhD, I gathered the best people that I knew. We started a company, and we started building software. And the software that we built was software that could actually automate the creation of point-to-point communication channels between two computers, and specifically vehicles, to ensure that when data is sent between them, that it goes along the most direct route. And what we ended up building, if we go back to transportation, is very similar to then the infrastructure that you use when you call for a taxi, or you use your app to get a taxi, or when you call an emergency line and the ambulance comes to you and picks you up and takes you to where you need to go along the most direct and uninterrupted route. This capability was crucial in my PhD research. And this is just an example from 2 years ago. So over the last 2 years, there have been several times where I have come across some gap in my PhD research, and I have been able to kind of work with this gap in a company and actually fill it with a technology that fits into the reality of today, and that fits and serves customer needs, has realistic business models. And while working with the company, something that amazing that starts to happen as well is that I am then faced with reality. I'm faced with what the conditions of the world look like today. And this refines my vision, and I can bring this back to the PhD and actually refine my research and enhance it there. And what you get is you get this flywheel of innovation. So I have come here today not just to tell my story, but because I know that many individuals who are listening have incredible insights into how our digital infrastructure should be built so that the future serves the needs of society. And I hope that by telling my story, that it can serve as a gentle reminder or push to leverage those insights, build your flywheel, embrace the precarious nature of it, and help build our digital future for the better. Thank you.